No.
Do you want to give a grace period, Tori?
Yes. We can start whenever you're ready, Carmen.
Okay, so no grace period. All right.
Mhm.
All right, so good evening, everyone. My name is Carmi Ann Foster, and I'm pleased to serve as a co-chair for this evening's meeting. My co-chair, Councilmember Pacheco, will not be joining us, so I'll be rolling solo tonight. It is August 19th, 2025, and I now call to order the August meeting of the Equity Advisory Committee in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order. We'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of the members of our committee, as well as to members of the public joining us in person and online. This meeting will proceed until 8 p.m., and we appreciate your participation. For those watching remotely, we are streaming live on YouTube, and our meeting takes place every third Tuesday of the month from 6 to 8 p.m. We will begin with a Dakota Land, Water, and Peoples acknowledgement. The Metropolitan Council acknowledges that the land we currently call Minnesota, and specifically the 7-county region, is the ancestral home of the Dakota Oyate. I really need to learn how to pronounce that. Who are present and active contributors to our thriving region. As a part of the Metropolitan Council's commitment to address the unresolved legacy of genocide, dispossession, and settler colonialism, and the fact that the government institutions, including the Metropolitan Council, benefited economically, politically, and institutionally after the forcible removal of the Dakota Oyate. The Metropolitan Council is dedicated to instilling land, water, and people's commitments in regional policy. These commitments support the Dakota Oyate, the 11 federally recognized tribes in Minnesota, Ho-Chunk Nation, and the American Indian communities, representing over 150 diverse tribal nations that call the 7-county region home. All right, so we are going to move into our roll call. So before we proceed, we'll conduct a roll call to establish quorum and introduce our new EAC members. As a reminder, members should have received handouts via email, and we'll turn it over to Tori, who will do our roll call for us.
Yes, thank you, Carmen. And I also want to welcome our new members to the EAC. When you go around the room, if you would like to just say your name, your pronouns, and why you joined the EAC, that would be nice just to introduce yourself to the new members. And I will start with roll call of the new members first. So Markia Knight, so you can introduce yourself, say your pronouns, and why you joined the council.
Okay, I'm Markia Knight, she, her. Just joined the council to kind of contribute and see kind of what my experience, what my insights can kind of contribute to the group and to the community. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we have Astrid Benedetto. Is it Benedetto or Benedetto?
Benedetto.
Benedetto. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Astrid Benedetto, pronounced she, her. I'm excited to join the EAC to really contribute my perspective, and really this council really aligns with kind of like my 3 North Stars. In my day job, I also try to build coalition and capacity building, but then also things that are really benefiting the collective impact. So that's why I'm here.
Yes, thank you. All right, we got Zachariah Abdullahi.
Here.
All right, can you say your pronouns and why you joined the council, just to introduce yourself to the new committee members?
Hey, y'all. My name is Zachary Abdullahi, he, him. And I joined because, one, I wanted to gain experience from people that might be senior to me, but also provide insight on housing and, things that I've been doing in my day job. So pleasure to meet y'all and welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Tony Carter. Councilmember Dr. Tyrone Carter.
Hey, my name is Dr. Carter, and I'm glad to be here. To me, it's a representation of the principle of servant leadership. I think that we're all responsible for. We have many family members and ancestors that died that are not here today to pave the way for us. So it's up to us to step in, put our drop in the bucket to help raise the level for all of us and for our family and friends to come.
Yes. Thank you. All right, we have Carmi Foster.
Hello, Carmi Ann Foster, she, her pronouns. And I joined the council to represent Youth Voice as I work with systems involved young people in North Minneapolis. Are you frozen, Tori? In the kitchen. Looks like we might be having some technical difficulties, so I'll continue.
Can you hear me? Oh,
Oh,
I'm
there we go.
sorry.
Yep, go for it, Tori.
Thank you. My camera went out. Sorry, I'm having a couple of technical difficulties here. I apologize about that. Mitchell Hansen, Samir Icy.
Yeah, hi, Samira Issa.
Oh, Issa,
I
sorry, Samir.
oh no, it's okay, it's okay. I haven't been able to join the past few meetings only because of like technical difficulties I've been having. So it's nice to meet everyone and see all the new faces and whatnot. I joined the board to try to be a voice for the larger community that's not able to have the ability to be on a board like this, or maybe not have the time to just be a responsible member of the community and yeah, try to represent their interests and their voices.
Thank you. Michael Lucini, Council
Hi,
Member
everybody.
Yasi.
Michael
Oh,
Luceni.
sorry. I didn't give you some time. Go ahead.
Yep, no problem. This is Michael Luceni. I am too on the board representing the area of Plymouth where I live and just discussing the issues and giving my input as needed.
Thank you. And next we have Council Member Yasin Osman, Council Member John Pacheco, Anita Urbina
Good,
Davis.
good
Hello.
evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to see some new faces. My name is Anita Arena Davis, and I joined the Met Council for the same reasons as Ms. Samira said, to represent people who are unable to be part of this organization, to have a voice, and to represent my Latino community as much as I can. And I've always been actively involved in communities.
Thank you. All right, so that's
Tori.
everyone.
Tori,
Yes.
Councilmember Osman is on the call, so if you'd like to introduce
Oh,
yourself, Councilmember.
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry. I didn't even see you there. I apologize.
That's okay. My name is Yasin Osman. I'm a council member from District 7 in Minneapolis. I joined the council back in 2023. This is not my first public official. I used to be a senior advisor to the Prime Minister of Somalia. So I just want here to contribute and make a difference.
Thank you. And then we also have Councilmember Tony Carter that's joined us.
Hi, thank you. Sorry it was taking me some time to get access today. Tony Carter. I'm on the council from District 14, which is the western parts of St. Paul. Glad to be here with you all.
Thank you. And I will say that we have established quorum today, and we can go ahead and get started with the meeting.
Fantastic. So with quorum established, we'll move into the approval of the previous meeting's minutes. But before we do that, does anyone have any corrections or additions to the minutes? All right. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as provided.
Move approval.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. With only one opposition, the minutes are approved. Our next order of business will be approval of today's agenda. A draft agenda was distributed in advance via email, along with the other handouts for today. Are there any suggestions for changes or corrections to the minutes? I'm sorry, the agenda. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Lucini. A second? All right. With a motion and a second, I'll now, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All righty, any opposed? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. All right, so we now invite members of the public to address our committee. If you wish to speak, please note that you must have pre-registered online prior to this meeting. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to share their comments. Is there anyone who has registered, Tori?
We didn't have any registrations for public speaking, so you can go ahead.
All right, then we will move on to our presentations for this evening. We now move to a way to prompt payment. For this segment, we are pleased to welcome John Tao, Senior Small Business Specialist, and Gilbert Odonkor, I apologize if I mispronounced that, Manager of Construction Procurement for Hennepin County, who will present on this topic. Each presenter has 20 to 30 minutes, depending on their presentation and its needs. We ask that you hold all of your questions until after the presentation, when we will engage in conversation. And with that, I will turn it over to our presenters.
I wanted to ask John, did you guys want to present, or did you want me to do the presentation for you?
We can share our screens and drive the presentation.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. And then let me see.
And while you're pulling that up, John, I would ask that for the record, you just state your name for us when you guys get started.
Yes. So yeah, my name is John Tao. I'm with the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity with the Met Council. And then I will hand it off to Gilbert for his introduction.
Yep, thank you, John. And my name is Gilbert Odanko. I'm with Hennepin County. I manage construction procurement for Hennepin County. Thank you for having us here, and good evening to you all.
Let's see. Share. Here we go. Oop. Can everybody see?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So thank you, everybody. We're very happy to be here tonight. And what we're going to be sharing tonight is a presentation that we actually presented at the national level to the 2025, American Contract Compliance Association conference that just happened last week. So yeah, we were pretty excited to be able to share this at the national level and get some feedback from all of those public agencies. We got DBEs, we got prime contractors there, and then we also had some private businesses that provided compliance software to a lot of the agencies across the US here. So lots of great networking and trading of ideas and learnings. So there were a lot of my colleagues here from the Met Council too, from the small business unit that also attended. And yeah, so we learned a lot and we brought a lot of information back to help us move the work here at the Met Council. So I presented this a way to improve prompt payments because from my time starting here at the Met Council, working on the light rail projects and engaging with small businesses, prompt payment and cash flow has always been a top concern and priority for the small businesses. And through my time working at the light rail projects, supporting the small businesses and monitoring the payment applications. I was trying to dream and think of a way to help these small businesses and just trying to better understand the process. And then I would say about 2 to 3 years ago, I decided to look beyond the US, and I stumbled upon something from the UK called project bank accounts. And with that, that is where I began to have this discussion with Gilbert, and we were both on the Southwest Light Rail, or now the Green Line Extension's DBE and Workforce Advisory Committee. And we was thinking about various ways to address this problem. And from there, Gilbert and I was meeting with the leadership of the project bank account programs in the UK, and then I've also met with some folks from Australia that has done some research on this as well. So we're hoping that us presenting this initiative or this idea at the national level can spur some of the public agencies across the US to pilot a project so that we can bring back some proof of concept to support our initiatives here locally. And then in the meantime, we are also pushing for the initiative to pilot a project bank account pilot here locally too. So that's what we're going to be sharing about, and then also sharing about some of the work that we've done here locally too. And Gilbert, if there's anything I missed, feel free to add to that.
All right. Well, no, John, I'll just jump in when, you move the slides forward, but you got it.
All right. So today we're talking about project bank accounts, an overview. We're going to be talking about the practices, impacts, and a little bit more about what it is, if we want to do it here locally, what we got to do, some of the challenges, the pain points, and then open it up for Q&A so that we can answer any questions you have. So, what I want you guys to think about is, when we're talking about this, one of the questions I think about is how important is it to you that taxpayer dollars reach people who are doing the work on these construction projects as quickly as possible, because these projects are funded by tax dollars, and a lot of times, the businesses, they go under when they don't have the funds to support their businesses, to pay their workers. And it ends up being like a domino effect, because if you can't pay your workers don't show up on the site, the project gets delayed, and then that in turn costs additional dollars for the project and the public agency as well. And then, beyond that, there's a reputation that ends up being had too, as being known as, the contractor that does not pay on time, or the government agency that takes too long to pay their contractors. So nobody really wants to bid for those particular opportunities, even if they are available. So that's something that concerns a lot of the small businesses and us as the constituents and owners.
Yep.
So go ahead, Gilbert.
All right, thank you, John. So a little bit of my background is that before joining Hennepin County, I was in the private sector. I worked for, came to school here, worked for Thor Construction. Some of you might know Richard Copeland, Thor Construction. I worked for Thor Construction for a couple of years, started my own business from 2008 to 2014 as a small business, minority-owned business. Some of these challenges were real. And so in joining Hennepin County, part of my goal in managing construction procurement was try to, reduce some of these barriers that small businesses faced. So it's with that, like John said, being on the advisory committee for the Southwest Light Rail and now the upcoming projects, we decided that we need to work hard to try to eliminate these barriers. I remember very well, vividly, the challenges, we faced on the CCLRT, the Central Corridor Project. same issues. So for many years, this has been an issue that has plagued small businesses. So our objective here is to try to go over some of the practices that we have in Hennepin County, as well as talk about the PBA that John just mentioned. So John, you can move on the slide, please.
All right. So as I shared before, a lot of times local contractors, they have to wait a long time to get paid, and this impacts the workers and our community, because those wages that we pay these workers, they go back into our community. And I think from a public agency perspective, we want small businesses to participate and for these tax dollars to go back into our community through these small businesses. The current system as it is very outdated. Some companies are still sending paper paychecks out to people, and in the age of direct deposit and wiring ACH payments directly into the accounts, we gotta get updated in our whole process and our system, because in addition to those paper paychecks that need to go through the mail, if you are on a project and the lower you are in the tier, meaning you are a subcontractor of a subcontractor of a subcontractor, you carry the most burden and have the most risk, because the money has to trickle its way down to you from the general contractor. And many small businesses have gone bankrupt waiting for that, or else they've had to take out loans to be able to just get their own money for the work that they've completed. Sometimes transparency is the issue, because they submit in their invoices to their general contractor, and they don't know how much of that invoice has been accepted, or how much of that will they get back, and the time frame when that'll get back. So there's not a lot of transparency there. They just submit in their invoices and hope for the best. Being on the project, sometimes I get phone calls from small businesses saying, "Hey, I haven't got paid. Where's my money at?" And then I've had to do some searching in the database to try to find where in the process and the review period is their payment application, so that they can even know, are they going to get paid? How much are they going to get paid? So I've tried to facilitate that, but it is definitely a challenge because it takes time. And for the subcontractors, it's not a place that they want to be in, because they don't want to be the person that's tattletelling on the general contractor, because they don't want to ruin that relationship. A common practice in the construction industry is for general contractors, when they get paid, it's a cash flow. So they use the funds to fund other projects, or else they hold on to the money as long as possible to get interest from those payments. So, I think it's a concern when you're talking about accountability, that sometimes these dollars that are being paid to the general contractor may get used to fund other projects while they're waiting for that time frame, the clock to tick down for them to be able to pay their subcontractors. Because in Minnesota, there's a 10-day window from when a contractor gets paid for them to pay their subcontractors. And that's if they pay on time. Sometimes they have various disputes where they are refusing to pay the subcontractor because they want the subcontractor to complete a certain task first. So those type of disputes often happen in the construction industry. All of this matters because it contributes to reducing the trust, slowing down projects, and it increases costs and risk for our public projects. One of the main things suppliers and subcontractors do when they worry about being paid on time is they work that into their bids for our contracts, and I'm going to share some stats of that in a little bit here. But, if you're concerned about getting paid on time, it's reasonable for subcontractors to build a cushion into their quotes that they submit for a particular project, and to say, well, if they don't pay me on time, at least I have some money here that'll cover me. But, I think at the end of the day, it is about accountability, because when a prime contractor fails to pay a subcontractor promptly, the accountability, where does that fall on? Does it fall on us as an agency, or, is that a particular issue that is between just the subcontractor and the prime contractor that we can't intervene in? And, it causes harm to those workers and our community in the end of the day.
All right, thanks, John. So in the interest of time, I know we have a lot of slides, so we're going to move really quickly. I just want to start off by talking about this, some of what public agencies should be doing and what we are doing at Hennepin County. So in 2017, after joining the county, we did a survey of small businesses and trade organizations in the marketplace to try to find out what their most challenging barriers or issues were. And one of the main issues that came up was prompt payment. It's a decision to bid on a project or not to bid. A lot of times projects don't get small businesses participating because of that. And so we decided to put in place some measures to try to attract more bids by addressing the issue of prompt payment. So by statute, we for small businesses up to 500,000, we can bid exclusively to small businesses. So we created a payment program around that statute for projects below 500,000. And basically what we say here is that if you're a small business, you can submit bi-weekly payments to us. Every 2 weeks, you can submit a pay application. It will get paid. If you have materials that you need to purchase, that affects your cash flow. If you have approved invoices and submittals, you can submit those as well for payment. Additionally, we don't hold any retainage on your payments for materials and equipment. Retainage is usually 5 to 10% paid at the end of a project. So we don't hold that against you. And we have language, as is shown on the screen here. This is our sample payment terms language that we use at Hennepin County for small business contracts. And then for larger projects, where we are also encouraging, that will be the next slide, please. For larger projects be above 500,000, we require the prime contractors to inform small businesses that some of this language exists, particularly the one on the screen here, which says that if you have equipments or materials that you're buying as a sub, you can put in your pay application earlier, get paid on those. So far as we know where the materials are stored, we'll pay you so you don't have to be out of pocket for those items. And then we also don't withhold against any of your pay applications for materials and equipment. We will not hold retainage on that. So we're getting more money into your pocket. So those are the languages that we currently have in our contract documents to make sure that at the front end of a project, before bids happen, small businesses, subcontractors, they know that Hennepin County will pay very well. And that, I believe, contributes to the high level of participation and the almost doubling of participation of minorities on our projects, as the recent disparity study showed. So, John, the next slide, please. So the question here is, what are local agencies doing and what should they be doing? We have showed that, by having language in documents during the solicitation phase, it definitely increases participation and small businesses take more interest once they know that they are going to get paid. And in the interest of time, I won't go into some of the examples I would have used for my own experiences. So John, we'll move on to the next slide. John had mentioned briefly some of the actions that small businesses take when they are on a project that does not pay them quickly. Some of the stats here tell us that 70% of contractors face payment delays on projects, and 50% of contractors adjust their bids upward due to anticipated delays. That is 50% of the cost that shouldn't be in the number. And this is all rolled up, to the owner. So these are costs that the owner is going to be bearing as a result of either the prime paying slow or the agency paying slow. And then 8% is the average markup on bids to guard against slow payments. So that is a percentage, a markup percentage on top of profits, overhead, general conditions that contractors put on top of a bid to submit to the prime, and it rolls up. So if you're a third tier, you're marking it up 8%. The second tier is marking that up. Everybody marks it up to that point. So there's a real cost to this issue, and not just the impact on small businesses. John, the next slide, please.
All right. So we've been talking a lot about the current situation, what's being done locally, and I'm gonna jump into what's a project bank account. So project bank account is a ring-fenced trust account, specifically for a project. And I'm gonna, imagine you're remodeling your kitchen and you set aside the money for the project in a special account that is only for your remodeling project. And any contractors or subcontractors are getting paid directly from that account. And no one else can touch that money for anything else. So basically, that's really what a bank account, project bank account is. And the only thing is, it's for public construction projects. Instead of payments going through a long chain from the government to the prime contractor, to the subs, and to the workers, and to the suppliers, all the funds are being held in this account. And the money gets sent to everybody at the same time. Contractors get paid faster. The small businesses at the very bottom, they get their money at the same time. Any one of the businesses do go out of business, whether it's the prime or any sub in between the layers, the money is still protected and people still get paid so that they can still continue on doing the work that they were planning to do. Projects run smoother, and and overall the community benefits from this because the businesses are able to get paid, and cash flow is able to occur for them, and they're able to pay their workers, and the project is more likely to end up on time. And this is something that's common in the UK, as I said, and Australia. This is something that's been implemented and mandated on all of their government contracts, especially the highway contracts. And my hope is that this will be a initiative or a pilot that can do the same for our region here. And really, when I look at it, this is the opportunity for the Met Council to be a leader in the country, to do something different and really change up the way that this whole payment ecosystem works. So I think another way to talk about this in a way that may be helpful is that if you have a mortgage, you're probably familiar with escrow accounts that pays the taxes and the insurance for your home. Or else if you've ever filed an insurance claim, the funds from that insurance claim may be put into a trust account that is dedicated to the repairs of that insurance claim. And as I shared here, and the visual that I have here, the project bank account is purely a payment vehicle that happens when it comes time to get paid. All the responsibilities and all of the requirements for a project and any contract is still there. It's just when the check from the Met Council to the prime contractor gets sent, it goes right into this account. And from this account, the bank sends the money to all of the contractors that are owed money within a payment application. This account is owned by the prime contractor, or in some cases, it's shared ownership by the prime contractor and the owner. So in that case, that would be a prime contractor and the Met Council. And only authorized payments are deposited into the account, and only authorized payments are paid out. So as a visual, I wanted to share, this is what it looks like in the current payment system. The owner, the Met Council, we take about 30 days to review a payment application to make sure all the work that has been scheduled is done, that any testing for quality assurance has been taken place. Then we pay the contractors, and then from the prime contractor, it's pay when paid. So they have 10 days to pay their second tier. Second tiers, then once they get paid, they get 10 more days. Third tiers, 10 more days, so on, and it continues. So you can see whoever's on the bottom has been just waiting there, hoping to get some money to pay for their manufacturers, any suppliers that they have, or their workers. And 60 to 90 days is conservative when you're looking at average amount of days it takes for people to get paid. So when you look at the project bank account, it flattens all of that. You know, the owner takes 30 days to get paid. Once everything's been approved, the money gets sent to the project bank account. Within 5 to 7 days, that bank reviews the bank mandate to pay all the subs and the prime contractor, and the money gets sent wired to all of their accounts at the same time. Nobody gets priority. If you didn't do work included in that pay app, then you're not going to get money, of course. But you know, if you're included in the pay app, you're going to get money sooner. So the payment cycle changes from 60 to 90 days down to 35 to 37 days. And that's a huge difference that can really impact whether a business thrives and whether it survives.
All right, so this is just a quick overview of how this practically happens. So work is done on site, the scopes are completed, scopes of work are completed, a pay application goes in monthly. And so what happens is the prime collates all the pay applications, sub-pay applications for work that is completed properly, approves those, sends them to the owner for review, owner approves them, then the owner makes the payment, as John had outlined. Then the authorized agents or to the owner as well as the prime sign off, the bank transfers the money, payments are made instantaneously, you know, through the bank accounts that have been collected for all the subs. So this is just a practical overview of that. And I think there's a hand up, Johnny.
Oh, thank you. And I appreciate being able to answer or ask a question in line. It's not an emergency, but before I forget, I just really appreciate the way this is structured. And you answered one of my questions as you talk about the pay up or pay app, which is what the prime contractor completes so that he shows all of the authorized payments. And once that's approved by the owner or the Met Council in this case, and those payments are all made at one time. And that is just really beautiful. What I wonder is there any protection for an individual worker? I know that the smallest contractor is going to get paid on time. If something should happen to that contractor and they're not able to make those payments, that happens in arrears, I imagine. The workers aren't paid out of the pay app or authorization structure. Is that true?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think the workers or the workforce piece is currently and most often tracked through what we call the LCP tracker, which is a software for payment of workers. So most of the infrastructure projects workers have to be paid prevailing wages, and that is tracked through a system. So on a monthly basis, as you're paid, you're also expected to show your bi-weekly payments of workers in LCP tracker. And there are compliance folks that are usually going out on site and making sure that the workers are being paid, asking questions, and you have to identify all your workers, your workforce within the system. So if that is not submitted, you don't get paid. So it's one of the checks and balances. If your previous LCP tracker payments have not been completed, then on subsequent pay applications, your payment may be withheld because you haven't caught up. So those are some of the checks and balances that take place.
And that's wonderful. That takes care of any issues that have happened in the past. It doesn't cover that last possibility that someone may go out of business and not pay employer or pay workers. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay.
That is
All
correct.
right. I appreciate you're doing what you can. It's great that they have to show all the workers. I'd love to see a system that would automate that process as well.
Yes.
So
yes.
thank you.
Yes. All right. John, next slide, please. Be quick with this one. This is Yeah, this slide here shows some international examples, one in the United Kingdom and one in Australia. We will make these slides available. I know we're probably going to run against time, but this shows the 2010 highway project. It mandated in 2013 for public projects. 2016 to today, PBAs are used on major infrastructure projects in the UK. And like John said, we met with these folks. They explained the process to us, and it's really up to us to try some of this in our marketplace here. Second one is Australia, same thing, piloted in 2014, and it was mandated in 2016, and today it's widely used. And then so next slide, John.
Oh, we got a hand up.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to let you know that you have till 8 to finish this presentation, so don't feel like it's a rush.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
No
I
problem.
thought I had
Yeah,
20
so we have till 8
minutes or something
o'clock
like
for the
that.
EAC.
Okay,
You guys are the only presentation on, so if you have time, take it.
we will take it. Thank you. Okay, I'll slow down.
One thing I would like to add to this particular slide is that so in the UK in 2018, one of their biggest construction contractors called Carillion, they went bankrupt in 2018, and this caused so many subcontractors to suffer major losses. But for the projects that had project bank accounts enabled for them, their subcontractors still got paid on time. So that was the saving grace for some of those subcontractors to be able to survive that crisis. Because, yeah, if you're the prime contractor on top and you fold and you aren't able to pay your subcontractors, subcontractors don't have anybody else to go to get paid. And, and the agency is going to be put in a very hard place to try to answer some of those questions as well. So, oh, yes, go ahead. Oh, you're muted, I believe.
I have a question. So who is in charge of ensuring that all of the subcontractors are listed correctly as part of the project? Or in the case that, kind of once the bid is submitted, there's a replacement subcontractors that come in last minute. So who ensures that all the subcontractors are listed correctly for each of the project?
So, John, I can take that. I think usually the prime contractor is expected to list and identify all subcontractors. And subcontractor definition is anybody who is actually putting work on site, listed on their project list. So let's say you're using a software, you have to identify all your first tiers, and they in turn get added in. And so they can go in and also identify their sub tiers, whoever their suppliers are. So the owner has a complete view of whoever is working on the project. And that's a trickle down. So first tier subs get listed by the prime because they received bids from them. And these first tier subs in turn are expected to list their sub tiers. And you cannot hide because these sub tiers are going to come on the job and they have to sign in. People are going to know they are there. So you have to identify both your sub tiers that are going to put in work and those that are also going to be suppliers to you. So we should be having a complete view of who is working or putting work into this job.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yep. So, yeah, and a lot of that work to collect the information about all the subcontractors and all the banking account information, all of that is done at the very start of a project. Once a prime contractor puts in their bid and they get awarded this happens at that front end of the project where they collect all this stuff. And think about an org chart for any organization. You can kind of see who's the prime, who is at the different levels, and it's all mapped out and all the documentation is collected at the very beginning so that when it comes time to pay, we know, who's all involved and in the whole project.
Yep, that's correct. It is a living document. Some subs will be added, some subs will be dropped when their work is done. But with each pay application, anybody that put in work within that period, that is the pay application period, will have their amounts in there, and that will be checked off for payment.
Yep. So some more statistics here from a 2024 survey. They estimated that about $2 trillion were going to be spent in the construction industry. And of that $2 trillion in 2024 that was estimated to be spent, about 280 billion of that was going to be the cost of slow payments. And that cost is not just from the price markups that we shared before. This can come from project delays. If you're thinking about, any of these mega projects, one day of, work not being done, that is $1 million+ that, a project is incurring. So
I want to add to that,
they
John, that it is
yes.
real. When subcontractors cannot pay their workers or cannot pay for materials, they won't show up, and that is a delay to the project for that scope of work. That's add up. Yep. Okay.
Yep. So, benefits. So project bank accounts, there's a lot of benefits. You can see them listed here. I think, one of the clearest benefits that I can share is that, you're doing all this stuff, it's going through a bank. So there are, lots of documentation with the bank. There is an audit trail. If you get audited by the, federal government or internal audits, that banking information is there. We know when they get paid, how much they got paid, and what account it went to. In addition to that, the data that is collected within this bank is also data that can help us better understand our supply chain when we're doing a project, which businesses, which small businesses are getting more work. What are the demographics? The data can be used to support our small businesses so that we can see, we have less participation in this particular scope of work. Maybe we should focus our, development team, engagement and development team to further develop some of those small businesses in this other area so that we can have a more diverse ecosystem of businesses that can provide services to the Met Council. And I think this is also reassuring for taxpayers if they know that these projects had the funds that were put in a dedicated account and released directly to all the subcontractors involved. They know that the money would be secure even if somebody went out of business. And for the subcontractors, they could rely on being paid within 35 or so days. That would definitely help them feel more reassured, and there would definitely be more interest in small businesses wanting to bid on your projects. And then, in the current system, how would you feel or think about this if the project that is dedicated for a particular construction project is being diverted and used on other jobs to cash flow those other jobs while you may be having payment problems on your particular project. You can't really see what a contractor does once you pay them. What they choose to do with that money, you can't know, even though that's your project that the money is supposed to be paying all those subcontractors for. Benefits to the stakeholders. Oh, go ahead, Gilbert.
Yeah, I was going to take this slide, John. Thank you. So I just wanted to talk about some of the benefits that the stakeholders get out of using the PBA. For the owners, like John had mentioned earlier, a lot of owners, we have a reputation. There's no question about it. Whether Met Council pays fast or slow, or whether I want to do a Met Council job or not, whether I want to do a Hennepin County job or not, or MINDA job or not, depends on how fast or slow the agency pays. Now, this PBA addresses that. It kind of, like John showed, it levels it out. You won't have subcontractors calling you as council members saying, hey, council member, I'm working on this project and I haven't been paid for 120 days. I don't know what's going on. Can you please find out for me? I know our commissioners get those calls, and they do call our office. And, sometimes we have to trace it down. Has a prime been paid? We have to go into our system to try to find out, has a prime been paid? Have they paid their subs? So it's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress on everybody, not having a process like this in place. It kind of takes away that issue of transparency. It builds trust. It reduces stress for all of them. Suppliers are a big part of our projects, and the suppliers are at the very bottom of the chain. So a supplier buying a piece of equipment or some material and supplying it has to wait for 90 days. And most suppliers, manufacturers, will only give you maximum 30 to 60 days to pay them back. They don't care whether you have a contract with, a big sub or a prime. They want their money within, 60 days. Now, all of a sudden, your credit is impacted. You can't get more materials for other projects. It really impacts your whole business. And so this process of really crushing that, trickle down and flattening it out through this PBA is helpful around for everybody, from a trust perspective to a transparency perspective. Once, all you have to know is that the money has been paid, the owner pays in 30 days. There are no gimmicks along the line. Once your pay application was approved, you will get your money once the prime gets paid. So that's what this highlights, the benefits to all the stakeholders. All right, John.
So, yep. So you're probably thinking, well, this sounds too good to be true. And what are the pain points? And there's definitely, some challenges that also come with this because this is something new. It hasn't been tried out in the US yet, at least not in this form. There's trust accounts and there's escrow accounts, but there hasn't been a dedicated project bank account. So, as you know, the US has a decentralized legal system. Every state has their own policies regarding prompt payment, regarding construction statutes and contract rules. So introducing this would be a challenge, but it's not impossible. We've talked to the OGC for the Met Council and have shared this and some of the contract language that we've collected from the UK and Australian agencies. So we have that as a framework, a sample that we can look at and see and compare our contract language with theirs. There are also issues that people may have concerns about lien rights. So, in the construction industry in the US, they rely heavily on mechanics liens to secure payment. And this is something that can be perceived as something that, interferes with those lien rights. But what I would say to that is that, when you, as a subcontractor, have to use a lien, it's a red flag. It's a sign that the payment system is broken, that trust has been broken, that you don't think you're going to get paid. That's why you're using the lien. And, when a project bank account is used correctly, this can be served as a defense, or, it can limit that because, you have documentation that says, they subcontractor was paid on this particular date and time, this amount, and it really makes the mechanic liens obsolete. Like you don't need that. So, and I think if you do need that, and that should take place, then you would still be able to file that in a timely manner because the payment process with the project bank account happens so much quicker that you're not just sitting there waiting, and it's much more transparent. The setup and management costs. So for this project bank account, we're using a bank as a way to, expedite payments to folks. And a lot of the work for this uh, payment system is set up at the very beginning, working with the bank to make sure that they have all of the information of all the subcontractors and prime contractors, and that they know how to use this project bank account, and they can set up all the payments and get all the information they need to process the payments. Um, the banks do charge fees with this, but I would also say that in the UK, when they have done these project bank accounts, they found that banks often welcomed and wanted to account new businesses, because when you're doing this, you're getting so many millions of dollars for a project coming through your bank. And then you're getting all of these subcontractors that have now a connection to your bank that, for a lot of the banks to be able to market or to build new relationships, maybe offer loans to help them buy equipment. So the banks welcome it. In other arrangements, the interest from the funds that were deposited into the bank were used to offset the transaction fees. So there are various things that can take place that the owners or else the prime contractors can leverage using their established relationships with the banks to support this type of system. And it's been something that has been able to been a win-win for the folks in the UK. There may be some friction for some of the banks locally here to get familiar with the project bank account, but I think that there are 4 or 5 large banks in the UK and Australia that are like US Bank or large level banks. I think shoot, some of those banks I can name them off later. I forgot, but those banks already have systems in place. They're very much familiar, and I can imagine that they would be able to share some of their processes and procedures with the local banks. Contractors, prime contractors, they will most likely feel that this is taking a tool away from them. And, this is something that they won't be happy about. But I think that this also supports that, they can get paid on time and the subcontractors get paid on time, and they may be able to use this to get lower bids from their subcontractors. If they're using a project bank account and a subcontractor knows that they're going to get paid sooner, they may be able to give them a better quote. And then contract structures, this is, there may be some new, some work to integrate these contracts into the current contracts that the Met Council has. And the administrative burden of managing this may be a challenge as well. But I think one of the biggest challenges we have is that, unlike the UK or Australia, we don't have a government mandate to do something like this for our government or for our projects here at the Met Council. So it's clearly going to take a lot of education, being transparent. For us here, we've done the research and we have those templates of contract language that, we're willing to share with any contractor or any government agency that's out there. We want people to familiarize themselves and, try to poke holes in this to see, why won't this work? Well, is there a work around it? So that's been some of the challenges that we can see. And then Gilbert, if you want to share some of our experiences of engaging stakeholders here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'll do so, John. I wanted to add to the last bullet point about no government mandate. I think at the ACCA, some folks really brought my attention to the fact that this could be mandated. And really, it could be mandated for large projects, large infrastructure projects that often see very low participation or inclusion of small businesses due to the size of those contracts. So why wouldn't we take this up in the legislature to try to see if there could be, like in the UK or Australia, a mandate for having PBAs on really large infrastructure projects where we don't see small businesses participating for obvious reasons, because they cannot be held out that long. Besides the size of the contracts, even if they participated, they will be, strung out for so long that they could go out of business. And almost every light rail project we've done in this marketplace has its casualties. A lot of businesses start off well, and due to payment terms, change order issues, they fall off. By the end of the project, they're bankrupt. They cannot continue in business. So why can't we seek legislation to manage this, have this as a requirement on large projects? So it's a thought for you as council members also to think about whether this is something that could be legislated into our statutes to make it a requirement. Next slide, John.
Yep.
So John did talk about some of the challenges, and we want to talk about how to overcome some of these challenges. The next slide. All right, overcoming challenges. So as we have talked about, this is probably a novel idea in our marketplace. And so it definitely has to start with, what we're doing here, educating you folks about what we see as a viable option to reducing this barrier. The next thing is, like John had mentioned, a lot of prime contractors are going to push back on this because their change is difficult. They're going to push back and say, hey, we like the old way. Why would you change this? We like to control the money for 30 days before we have to release it. And what are you doing with the money for the 30 days? And then you release it. Some release it late. Nobody really challenges them. Subcontractors are calling, complaining. We haven't seen the money. Well, we gave it to them 20 days ago, 10 more days, and they're holding on to the money. Some of them are earning CD, what do you call it? Some quick financial benefits from it if the money is large. So why would we do that? I think we have to educate these guys, point it out to them, the benefits of the PBA. And without a doubt, you would all come to realize that all they are putting up is excuses not to change. And at that point, if they don't have any viable reason to move to this, then really it should be implemented, because I don't think I can see any other viable reason besides being used to the old system, holding on to the money longer, some semblance of control and authority over the subs. So if that is really the case, then it's not a good excuse to have the old system in play. And then we've talked about government pilot programs. It will be very ideal to fine-tune this process that we just outlined to you through a project. Could we find a $5 million project and kind of set up the mechanics for this? Contract language in the solicitation documents, or language in the solicitation documents, contract languages in our contracts, and leveraging existing banking relationships. All the public agencies have banking relationships. You really don't have to change banks to implement this. Like John had mentioned, most banks would gladly do this because they will see more money coming through their bank and see new clients coming into their bank to either withdraw money or be signed up as with new banking relationships. So it does benefit them. So there's no reason why the banks should resist this. And then contract templates, yes, those need to be developed. We have some of the templates from the UK that can be looked at by legal folks here to try to make it usable within our marketplace. And then there's a digital platform, that can be used. These days, almost all the public agencies use the B2G platform. B2G is a platform for managing payments to primes and their subs. And like we mentioned earlier, the prime would have to go in there. We sign them on. They go in there. They set up the account. They list all their first tier subs. They invite those first tier subs to go in and list their subsequent tiers and suppliers. So everybody becomes visible to the project team. And then with that, you can use that to collect the ACH numbers or bank accounts. It puts in their contract amounts. Every month they are paid. It updates the payment. You know what percentage the project is. So there are digital platforms, thanks to technology, that can be used to create a very transparent system and process where the owner can go in and see where the percentage of the job is, who has been paid and who has not been paid. And it can this what do you call it project? This B2G also links with LCP tracker. So the question about workforce, once your workforce is being updated, that also the cost of that workforce links back to B2G. So that there's some kind of connectivity between the workforce piece and the business payment. So these challenges that we talked about can be overcome, but there's an educational process because it's a new idea. We have to engage the large primes. We have to engage the subcontractors, and John and I have done some of that already. They are really ecstatic about this process, and that is why we bring it to you. They're ecstatic about it. At the least, we should pilot something and have the proof of concept and be able to move on to larger projects. Next slide, Jimmy.
Thank you. Yeah, the one thing I would add is regarding the prime contractors pushing back, they may feel like this is taking away a tool from them, but the project bank account is really not something that is relieving anybody of their responsibilities. Subcontractors still need to complete their work.
Yes.
If they have signed a contract to provide materials, they have to provide those materials per their contract. So they're not alleviated, no responsibility. This is just purely a payment vehicle that happens at the end of the payment process that just expedites money to everybody's bank account, much quicker so that they can take care of their other, liabilities. So in the survey, some additional information is that, in the 2024 survey, 92% of GCs, general contractors, have had work delayed or stopped due to slow payments. So this is something that, happens very often for a lot of projects. And this could be something that would mitigate a lot of those situations so that, people wouldn't have it'd be less of a problem for us as an agency. So, if we're looking about thinking about project bank accounts and starting piloting that, we actually, a lot of our engagement work, we met up with OGC, we met up with project managers here at the council, we met up with some of the associations for the small businesses, AWC, some of the AGC. We've tried to engage them and also engage DBEs, and we shared about this, and it's been generally positive feedback that, this is a risk, but if it does work, they would welcome it. So that's been the feedback that we've gotten. But, when we get to the next stage of like how to do that, well, you have to consider some of these questions that I had before. And, what projects, not every project, every contract is ideal for a project bank account. The best projects for a bank account are the longer projects, because if it's too short within a month or 2 months and it's real quick, it doesn't make sense to put in all that work to set up an account. Longer projects also create more risk for a lot of the subcontractors because they'll have to be able to, have the cash flow over that time span. The dollar value of the contract has to be 3 million or more because, we're really focused on these larger contracts so that it brings more value to the small businesses, because these larger contracts are also where we have more subcontractors, where we have more tiers of subcontractors. And we want to exclude all of those insurance, taxes, and other costs because those costs don't actually go to the subcontractors. Those are fees that are paid out to the state or the county. So we're looking at dollars that are actually going to subcontractors. And then the last thing that we should consider when we're looking at what's the ideal contract is it has to have multiple tiers. Because if a contract is pretty flat in hierarchy already, they don't have a lot of tiers, then, the chance of them getting paid, the delay in payment isn't really there. So not every contract is ideal. The one thing I would like to add, though, is that project bank accounts, it's very flexible. if somebody doesn't want to participate, they can opt out of it. If they are feeling that like, oh, you know what, I have a great relationship with my general contractor. I don't think that I am concerned about getting paid on time. I don't want to participate. Then that's fine. You can still participate in the contract and the project and do your work, and you'll have to wait until your general contractor pays you in the normal time frame. So that is something. And for us as the owner, if we're implementing this, we'll still have to document that because it's part of the metrics that also informs us of how well this is working for us, right? Because when people participate in it, we want to know that it's working. When they don't participate in it, we want to know if that's working or not working as well. So we'll also have these type of information when we're implementing this. Then the roles for a project bank account, there's primarily two different roles. The trustee, they're primarily responsible for managing the project bank account. So in this case, it's always going to be the prime contractor. They own the account. They are the one that authorizes the funds to be paid out. They fill out that payment application. In systems in the UK, I've seen them do, they offer two examples where the prime contractor is the owner, and the Met Council would still gain read-only access to check on the account to make sure the funds are there, to make sure things are being paid. We would still be able to do our compliance check of, who's getting paid, when they get paid, how much they get paid. And then the other example is a joint ownership where the prime is a co-signer and the Met Council would be the other co-signer. So both signatures are required to trigger payment. And that is something that I believe we see more common when I've looked into the project bank accounts in the UK. So that allows equal authority and more oversight on it. I think that fits in better with the way the Met Council operates when we process payment applications as well. So the beneficiaries are the prime contractor and any subcontractor in that whole supply chain that is waiting for money. Those are the beneficiaries that are in this particular project bank account. And it doesn't matter what tier it is. They can opt out of it, but they are listed as a beneficiary who can get paid from the account. So the other thing is you got to think about the bank. What is a good bank to work with? And can this bank abide by the deed agreement to say that this money is here for this particular project? Only people within the project or only contractors within the project is going to get paid. And when we pay them, we're going to pay them all at the same time. We're not going to prioritize anybody. And that these funds are set aside, and nobody can come in here and intercept these funds to take care of any other liabilities. The funds have to go to the beneficiaries that have been listed. And as I said before, U.S. banks are familiar with the trust accounts and escrow accounts. The banks that are from the UK and Australia that are more familiar with this are Barclays Bank, National West, or Lloyds Bank. Those are the big banks from the UK that are very familiar with these. And I also did some research, and I found that, in the US, we have state statutes that already enable for us to have construction trust fund statutes that can facilitate a project bank account. It's not a mandate to have a project bank account, but they can facilitate that. And I have that linked in the slides here, but I'm also going to share it on my screen here too. So this is the website, construction fund states. And this site, I was able to find, all of the states here. Some states don't have a trust fund statute, but, some states do. And when I look at this, I see, Minnesota is listed in here as, there's a state statute here that allows for a trust fund for construction to be had. So there is a pathway for us to do it here. So back to the slides. Okay. And then the work internally, that's going to be work for the Met Council and engaging within our organization, OGC, procurement, finance, the project managers. We have to do the work of looking at the contract language, comparing it with what we have, what's applicable and what's not, and then developing the process and procedures that is going to be incorporated into this process for this pilot. Also, we need to include is KPIs, key performance indicators, so that we know whether it's going well, because I think what they say is about KPIs. If you want something to work, you have to measure it. So that's one of the big things. The forms that are involved in this is the trust deed, which is happens at contract execution time. The prime contractor signs it, the Met Council signs it, and it is what is submitted to the bank saying that both parties agree to being in a project bank account. The joining deed is signed by any subcontractor saying that I want to be a part of this project bank account as a subcontractor, as a beneficiary. I agree to go through this system so that I can get paid sooner. And then bank mandate is the mandate that is included in every payment application that gives directions to the bank to say who to pay, how much to pay. And then at the very start of a project, the account opening forms, when we know that subcontractors are involved and the prime contractor is there, they provide these forms for all of the subcontractors and the prime contractors to fill this out so that we can collect it. We can establish the bank account and establish the hierarchy of payments of how, this whole payment system is going to work. So that's part of that. And then, we talked a lot about outreach to internal folks, but we're also going to need to do outreach with prime contractors and subcontractors. And what we mean by that is in the contract language, when we're putting a contract out for bid, we have to make sure that the prime contractors in all of their solicitations to subcontractors for quotes, they have to let them know that this contract is going to be a project bank account contract so that the subcontractors can know what they're getting into. We can provide resource packets for the prime contractors to use when they're engaging these subcontractors. And this is a recommendation from the UK that this is what you should do. You should have a web page up and inform people if they want to learn about what a project bank account is. You want to communicate that well in advance. You got to let the contractors know that, hey, this particular project, we're going to be using this on this particular contract. If you don't know about it, we're going to have some outreach sessions to teach you. These sessions and the information should be accessible via your website. We have to talk to our banks that we have relationships with to say, hey, we're going to do a project bank account. Is your bank able to facilitate this? Are you familiar with this? If you're not, get familiar with it. And then engaging the small business organizations. For us locally here, it's NAMC, it's MMGSA, and AWC, some of the local small business organizations. And of course, providing samples of the contract language for people to read and get familiar with so that they can have their lawyers or they can get familiar with all of the details. So those are the things that will need to be done to engage stakeholders. Over the time that they have been used in the UK, and the UK's MinDOT, they call it Highways England. So that's how they name their highways agency over there. They've contracted out 17 billion, that's UK pounds, in contract value over the time that they started piloting all the way through 2025. So in US dollars, it's about 22.7 billion US dollar in projects that they've used project bank accounts on. So it's something that I would definitely say is not just a pilot anymore. It's been tested, it's been proven to work, it's been adopted at their government agencies. So I definitely think that there's a value to it. That's why they're continuing to do it. So go ahead, Gilbert.
All right. Yeah. So after these narratives, we want to talk about lessons learned. You know, I did mention a few of the Hennepin County programs that we put in place from 2016 to the most recent disparity study. Hennepin County took a couple of steps. You know, when the final results of the 2016 disparity study came out, we were definitely not doing too good with the inclusion of small businesses. Now, all our programs that we put in place after the disparity study in 2016, 2017 were race gender neutral. So they were small business related programs, nothing race conscious. And as a result of the programs we put in place, we have seen a doubling of our inclusion of minority contractors on our projects. We've seen an increase in women contractors participating on projects with Hennepin County. And, you know, I'm proud to say that Hennepin County definitely is leading the results of the disparity study in our marketplace. And I won't 100% attribute it to these payment terms, but it's definitely one of the factors, you know, having these favorable payment terms in place for small businesses to see. Like we talked about upfront, we talk about it, we put it out on our construction documents. The language I shared earlier is in our contract documents. So if you're looking for payments and you pick up a bid solicitation document from Hennepin County, you will see that you can do these things to get paid early. And it's not always worked well because some of them expect to get paid within 2 weeks when they have issues on projects. So barring any issues on the projects with the pay application, you will get paid promptly. You know, none of this works if you have an issue on the project. You still have to have a project or your work, your scope of work acceptable and accepted by the prime for this to work. Otherwise, like the question came, it will be returned to you. If you have an error in your pay application, there's a process for returning it back to the sub, having them corrected, adjusted, you know, reduce it, and then resubmit it so they get paid within that same pay cycle. So the lessons we have learned is that this helps increase small business participation, having this language in our documents. Our reputation has improved. I hope there's no small business out there that will say, I won't work with the county because they're slow paying. I don't think that would be, if there might be other reasons, some of it maybe I don't want to work with this project manager, but hopefully it won't be about payment. Now, from the UK and Australia PBAs, they indicate that some of the lessons they learned is that ensuring primes communicate on a project will be, we'll use a PBA. That is at the onset. Before you go out on a project, you have to communicate that to everybody that we're going to be using a PBA on this project. That gains the interest of small businesses to participate on the projects. And then, like John had mentioned, there may be some SAPs for whatever reason. I cannot still think about why somebody would opt out of this prompt payment. Like we learned, some people still use flip phones, and some people, you know, still want to use landlines. You know, besides that, I don't see why you would opt out of this. You know, you definitely want to participate. The money will hit your bank account. You go in and take it out. So, but the option exists for people to opt out if they don't want to do that. And then maximizes the supply chain, you know, like we talked about, the whole stretch of the next blue line that is coming up is going to be a best value. It's going to be a project that is one prime that is going to have a whole chain of generals or subs under them. So you can imagine where a small business sidewalk contractor would be in that chain. You know, there will be like a 5th or 6th tier. So imagine a 30-day period plus all these days within that timeline before they get their money. It will definitely be impacting these small businesses that are lower tiered. So for us to be able to make sure that this problem doesn't exist, we should look at implementing. And then John talked about KPIs. We need to identify the KPIs and monitor them, for an iterative process in troubleshooting the impact of this process. Next slide, please. So talking about discounts, even in our procurement of goods and services, sometimes we ask for discounts. We say that, look, because we're paying you promptly or early, what kind of discount can you give us as a result of that? And that acknowledges the fact that some agencies or owners are slower paying. So if you get an agency that is faster paying, the subcontractors or primes may give you a discount because they can count on that payment like clockwork. They know they can count on it. They don't have to go around trying to factor. Some of these small businesses, you won't believe it, have to go to factoring agencies. These factoring agencies charge them exorbitant amounts just to give them money to float the project so they don't go out of business. So instead of taking all their profit, they're really giving some money away to a factoring company until that money comes in. So that would avoid that issue. That is, and then that this discount is what the facts show that a company or a contractor would give you if you are prompt paying. But I must say that it probably takes time to build that reputation. And this applies to prime contractors as well. Some prime contractors play around with the money when it comes to small businesses. We've seen that, sometimes you get a bid and we have a schedule of values where you have to identify the subs and the amounts. The same subcontractor would give a certain cost or price to one vendor or prime and then increase it by 20% to another one for the same scope of work, same project. They are listed, but they mark it up because that contractor has a reputation of maybe playing around with your money. And it's probably the same with the agencies. If you're slow paying, there's going to be a markup, like the survey has showed. There's going to be a markup on your projects. You're paying a premium for getting these subs to work with you because they know that at the end of the day, I have to put in 5%, 7% that I have to pay a factoring company to give me some money on my pay application that I've submitted to you to tide me over. It's not helpful, So that is really the summary of that. Let me turn it over to John to summarize and give us a key takeaways.
Yeah, Gilbert, can you circle back and touch on, like, because some people may be asking, like, what about working capital loans and the program that you guys put out there? And
that's a good question, John. So we realized we put a program in place for working capital loans because when we did the survey way back in 2017, loan facilities or adequate banking facilities and lines of credit were one of the issues that the contractors, small businesses pointed out. But one of the things we realized is that when Hennepin County put $1 million into an escrow account that contractors could borrow from. And guess what? Nobody borrowed from it. Nobody borrowed from it. There was only one instance of a small amount being borrowed from it. And then we did a survey of other public agencies that did the same. MINDAT had put a loan facility like that in place. It wasn't successful. Now, what does that tell us? I think what that has told us, without having to extensively survey this issue, is that a lot of the businesses simply want to be paid quickly. They don't want to borrow money. They want to be paid quickly. They don't want to be borrowed money. And one of the issues with borrowing money is that we had funds control. If you borrow the money, we don't want you taking that money and using it to buy a car or buy a truck. It has to be money that goes to the project. So they lose a little bit of control because we're going to ask you to do exactly what this PBA does. Tell us who your subcontractors are, and when the payment is made, we will pay them, through an account, and then we'll give you your balance. We saw that a lot of them didn't want that. They wanted to be in full control of their project. And so that's why a lot of them did not really use the loan facility. The interest rate wasn't exorbitant. It was a reasonable interest rate. But at the end of the day, they simply wanted to be paid faster and quicker so they can pay their invoices. They didn't want to go into borrowing money. So it was interesting. But we found out that Mindat had done the same thing, and it wasn't successful, just like ours wasn't. So that facility has been canceled, and now we live with this language that we have to try to pay them early. So they are in control of their money, and they are paying their staffs and their workers on time.
Yeah,
Right, John?
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, when I hear you explain it, it almost looks like that's one of those check cashing places where people would go and then the check cashing place was like take a cut of their paycheck, you
Yes.
know. So,
Yes.
so in summary, I think, what I would say is that the project bank account is a paradigm shift in how the payment ecosystem operates. This system changes and it updates the payment process to today's standards by using electronic wire transfers. And, when you're looking at the current state of our small business programs, it's in a state of crisis with all the political things that are happening. You know, we have to do something more for our small businesses. We can't just sit and wait for the other shoe to drop. We have to pivot and offer other tools to support our small businesses. And I believe that project bank accounts is this pivot, Some people may say that this is just something that may benefit only DBEs, but I would say no, that project bank accounts benefits all contractors who are at risk for payment delays. And this is why I shared the quote here that the rising tide lifts all boats, that I think that, everybody's going to benefit from this all along that supply chain. Um, and, if we were able to implement this, how would this reflect upon our agency being a leader in this? And, how much more trust in government would people have? How much more trust in working for government contracts would our small businesses have? Would we get more contractor participation? Would our projects be completed sooner? So, what I want to know is, what's the next step we could take as an organization to explore project bank accounts for our contracts? And I've included in the slides here some additional resources. If if you want copies of the contracts, I can also share that out too for anybody that's interested. But yeah, go ahead.
Sonny's got a question. Yep.
I'm sorry. I had raised my hand, but I wasn't sure if you had called on me.
Yes, please,
Yes.
Sonny.
Thank you very much for such a complete presentation on this, what I believe is an incredible opportunity for Metropolitan Council to, in its role, really lead in showing an example in our region of what can happen. Clearly, the devil is in the details, as they say, but you have seen this working in other areas. I really appreciate your bringing it forward, and the reception that it has received so far at the Metropolitan Council, as far as I can tell, has been quite good. I am not answering a question, but I am asking a question. I want to see, and I've heard other council members also who are on this call and on the council, having heard about the project bank accounts from our own staff. I believe it was Ashanti Payne who has shared this information and has been preparing the Metropolitan Council for its reception after it goes through the regional administrator and the cabinet to come back to actually vote to implement a project, a small project, the right size project, which can be a trial. And of course, even though things have been through trials in other area, it has to be our trial in order for everyone to believe it and move forward with it in other areas. So I'm looking forward to hearing the response from the cabinet, to understanding then how the approval will come before the Metropolitan Council, and knowing that we've heard from this team our EAC, having heard about this also from Ashante, I believe. I hope I'm not replacing things in my head, but I'm pretty sure we heard about that here at this table as well, although not as much detail. And the council has heard the EAC's real appreciation of this work. So I'm thinking that it is in process and that before too long, we should have an opportunity to see this moving forward at the Metropolitan Council. Take some time, but I hope not too long. I'm hoping it's in that process right now and receiving the support of community. And as you say, those who prime contractors and subs would stand to benefit. I think everybody benefits because it's high transparency and visibility. It does create the trust, all of the things that you've talked about. It's also high accountability, because it puts everyone in agreement. And with the KPIs added, as you've talked about, it helps us to be able to track the results of projects and the efficiency and management of projects over time, to see documentation, of what we have been able to secure in these projects. And so I'm a big supporter, and I think you've got big supporters on the line here. Are there any catch-22s that we are not aware of that you may be able to share with us in terms of dangers or pitfalls that we need to understand and remedy? And that is my question. I am hoping for the very best and expediting the implementation of a project here at Met Council. And thank you.
So if the question is about any pitfalls, I think you were right in saying that, the devil is in the details. Pilot projects will prove that out. But one of the areas that is often a question for prime contractors or of concern is a sub is completed a scope of work. I've included the amount in my pay application. And let's say I want to stop that payment, because for whatever reason, I want to stop that payment. I think it's something to discuss. Usually with regular pay applications, the standard process, once the pay application is made, the owner pays that amount, the money goes into the prime's account, the prime controls the money. Now, if the prime thinks a sub is delinquent on some work and they want to penalize them or have them submit some information that they have it or delinquent on, they have a little bit of control in doing that. So that is at least one area that I think needs to be worked out, to make sure that once that pay application is in, you have no way of turning it back because they will get paid. And maybe the answer is that the adjustment will be made on subsequent pay applications. So there's some burden of proof or work on the prime and the subs to make sure that that pay application and the work that it supports is completed well before it's approved. Because once it's approved, there's no correction there. It has to be paid out. So that's the one area I feel it needs to be discussed, because I can see that would be an area of concern to prime contractors.
I understand that because everyone is working to expedite that payment, and it goes out all at once. So once you've made the approval, you certainly have to put in the work up front. So that is expediting work too for the prime. But it seems like a contract that everyone agrees to. And so I agree too, and appreciate your pointing that out, that is an area of research and remedy. So thank you very much. If there's anything else, I'd love to hear.
Okay. Before we continue with more questions, I do want to make sure that we're using our lovely Robert's rules and all that good stuff. And I do want to thank our presenters, John and Gilbert, for your thorough presentation. And so as we open up the floor for continued questions, just reminder to our committee members to make sure that we are limiting our questions so that we all get to ask the questions that we have. And so I see Michael Lucini's hand up, and the chair recognizes Michael Lucini.
Yeah, I had a question, but it was answered from the last questioner. So I'm good. I'm withdrawing my hand.
Thank you. Let's see who we have. Dr. Carter.
Yes, mine is more of a comment. And certain things as a former contract specialist for the Department of Defense, I've known about these issues for a while, and I like the idea that we are looking at some models overseas and taking some great things away. Of course, the pilot program is going to really tell us more about how this glove fits our fingers. But I'd just like to say that the issue of fairness and equity when it comes to payment, I'm glad that's being addressed, and hopefully if we can use this to go forward and benefit the minority and small business contractors, subcontractors. Also, a big part that has already been stated, the audit trail is going to tell you a lot, and I'm hope we're going to learn from each post audit of these contracts once we do set up a pilot to try to improve the system going forward. So I just want to say thank you for all the work that was put into this, and this is definitely a positive step.
Welcome.
Thank you. I actually had a question and a comment. This sounds like a really amazing project, and like some really great work has gone into it, and it'll really improve things for subcontractors. I wonder first if there are plans underway for how you all are going to do that community engagement piece of this work. Often our smaller and contractors of color don't necessarily know the right people to help them navigate these things all the time. And I do know that there are some different cohorts and things that are taking place across the state of Minnesota, and wondered if your team has plans around engaging with the minority developers cohorts and things that are taking place.
Yeah, I think we had mentioned earlier that we have run this by the National Association of Minority Contractors, the AWC, and I believe the AGC is also aware. But with Hennepin County, we do have resources for small businesses where they can tap into for explanation of contract documents, bid documents, etc. We have legal counsel, and it's 25 hours of free services. If you're within Hennepin County, you can access 25 hours of legal advice on this kind of stuff for free. So let's say we put out a solicitation document and you need to understand the implications to your business. You can sign up 25 hours of legal services, explain this to you without any cost to you. We used to have funds for a cohort for training, for project management, bidding, estimating. Now the funds is dried up a little bit, but we are still fighting to have more money for those kind of services or resources are made available. So we do, there are organizations that we definitely will work with that will champion this to all their members, AWC, NAMC, MMGSA, even the AGC. I think we plan on using all these trade organizations to promote this in the marketplace, and then also look to find resources for small businesses that want to understand what this means on their own, independently, by using some of these resources that we have in place.
I would add to that I would, be wrong if I did not acknowledge the support that we have from Neon, Warren over at Neon, and, the support that he's given us throughout this process. We've been transparent in, talking about this and wanting to share information about this and getting his feedback. And he's been a champion at, getting the community members that he's in touch with and the folks that he's in touch with. So I, much gratitude to him. And it's these type of relationships that we want to build more of these transparent relationships with these organizations. So we definitely want to add to it. And if there are any requests for any organizations that want to learn more about this, we're more than happy to create opportunities to engage and
Yes.
answer questions about this as well.
Yes. Thanks for adding that, John.
Fantastic. Thank you. Are there other hands? Otherwise, I did have another question. This model sounds like a great opportunity to support subcontractors in getting paid. I wonder if there are similar models or other models under consideration that move our small and minority contractors closer to being the primary, as opposed to supporting them in their subordinate position.
Yeah, that's a very good question, especially in the horizontal construction world. It is a challenge. We are really short of primes that are small business in our marketplace across the board. And last year, we started a collaborative effort with MINDAT, the state, city of Minneapolis, Hennepin County. I don't think city of St. Paul is involved, but most of the infrastructure public agencies, so to say, Met Council included. You know, Ashanti is at the table with us, talking about how we can build capacity for small businesses in our marketplace. You know, from certification to programs that we can put in place, particularly on the transportation or the horizontal work area. On the vertical side, I think we have some small businesses, you know, with good bonding capacity. Some of them have 30 million, some 20 million. And when you look on the horizontal side, it's not the same. All of them end up being subcontractors. And so how do we build that? So that's a very good question. We're working on how we can collaborate amongst these agencies to make sure that we have a standard for inclusions. If we have work, we want to be able to promote that same project to Met Council's DBE firms or to Menda's DBE firms. How do we create, based on NAICS codes, of firms that can do that work? So let's take culvert work. You know, we should have a group of firms that have the experience in doing culvert work, so that we can promote that to that group, irrespective of, you know, whether they are DBE or SBE or, you know, any other certification. That is the only way we can build that capacity. It's going to be competitive, but you will have the chance to do more of any agency's work to build your capacity, so that you're not limited to MINDAT or to Met Council or to City of Minneapolis. So that work is on our way. That's a great question. It's definitely one of the handicaps in our marketplace, having adequate small businesses with that capacity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. But it reinforces the need for us to keep working on that. So I appreciate it.
Councilmember Usman.
Yeah, very much. First of all, I want to thank you guys. This great presentation really make a lot of changes to the industry when it comes to payment. As we all know, that the biggest barrier that the small businesses have is a cash flow. Once we have a solution for that, I think we get a big step. My question is, do we engage the banks or the financial institutions? How do they see such a account? Especially we have in Met Council, we have, for those who are familiar with the management committee, we have like 7 or 9 community banks that do business with Met Council. So did we started any conversation regarding this kind of account? And thank you for the presentation.
Yes, Chair and Council Member, I can answer that one. And I think we've began doing engaging with our finance department, they would be the channel that we would need to go through to help facilitate that type of conversation with the banks, because they have a better understanding of the landscape and then some of the past relationships. But we would definitely need to engage all of the banks that we work with about this, and see if it's within some of their capabilities that they can do. And then I think it would be beneficial for us too, for some of the finance folks to be able to reach out to some of these larger banks that already have these systems in place to better understand these services, so that we have an idea about what is expected and what's the paperwork or documentation that's needed to establish something like this with the bank.
And I want to add to it. So, Chair and Council member, and I apologize for failing to address you as such in the past, but yeah. So, Chair and Council member. So, Hennepin County, we work very closely with Met Council on infrastructure projects, and we definitely, when we started talking about PBAs, took it internally to see if we could equally find a pilot project. At the time we did that, we weren't getting good traction about this whole process or this undertaking. But if once there's traction, we're willing to equally explore the possibility of being the ones to have a pilot project to try it out. I believe our leadership will be happy to try this out once we share it with them, like we're sharing it with you here. So, and that would lead to, probing what banking relationships we have and all the whole process, the whole 9 years of educating our folks and probing the processes we have to make sure that it works. Thank you.
All right. I don't see any other hands raised. So I'll just thank you again, Gilbert and Tao, for your time and for your thoughtful presentation this evening. Yeah. And before we conclude, I will open the floor for our members who might have announcements, and a reminder to council members that this is the time in our agenda where you can provide updates about the other committees that you are on, if there are any. All right, seeing no hands for updates or announcements, I will entertain a motion to adjourn, if there is one.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Thank you,
Second
Council
that. Second.
and Member. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you all so much for your time and participation this evening. Have a great night.
Thanks, Chair
you.
Foster, for
you.
excellent
Bye.
management. Take care. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice evening.
Bye, guys.